Hey patrons, happy Tuesday. We have the IRP team here ready to answer your questions. The first one comes from Ashia Gallo. She asks, when you're entering contests or shopping your projects, what are the best ways to protect your work to ensure that your voice and story maintains its integrity regardless of how little power you have in the industry starting out?
Sister Gallo, I think that I think that you have to come in and have a baseline of what you will and will not accept. If you know that what's important to you going in and aren't willing to compromise on that, I'm not saying not be willing to collaborate, but I'm saying if you know that at a baseline, this is the story I have to tell, and you keep that in mind throughout the process, then nothing should change you. I think Issa should speak to her experience at ABC. I think that would be a good example to let people know that it happens to everyone where you might think that it's your only opportunity. And a lot of times as Black people, we feel like we only get one opportunity. And maybe that's true, but I think that if you work hard um, and stay faithful to your craft, you will have multiple opportunities. You can't see one project as your only project. You got to see it as one project or one step in your career or in your journey to wherever you're trying to go. So I would just say, come in, be willing to collaborate, be willing to listen to new ideas, be willing to know that ideas can come from anywhere, but know that the story you want to tell, to stay true to that. Because to me, what's worse is to come in and compromise your vision to try to fit someone else's vision. Because if it doesn't work, you're going to get all the blame regardless. If it does work, everyone gets all the credit. You know the saying, success has many fathers, failures and orphans. So I would just stick to knowing what I believe in and trying to stay as close to that as possible while still collaborating.
I would say that that's great advice. I think that's what happens when you win the contest in terms of entering the contest. You just have to be satisfied knowing that you submitted, but you can't, unfortunately, I used to be very protective of my ideas and like, oh, I'd be so afraid that people are going to steal them. Oh my gosh, I can't say it out loud because somebody's going to take it. And I think usually the contests, to be real, are always going to favor the people who put them on. So at the end of the day, you kind of have to trust the process, and you have to be comfortable with the fact that your idea is going to be out there. There's a very small chance that that idea can be taken, but no one will be able to do your project like you do your project. And so at the end of the day, it will never be your version of the project. So I think the best thing that you can do is just kind of submit and keep it pushing, and make sure you save all the receipts and read the fine print.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add is, from a legal perspective, if you are really nervous about submitting your work, as it relates to a script, if you have written a script and you are submitting it to a contest or to managers or agents or to any other companies and you're nervous about them stealing your idea, you can register it with the WGA. Even if you're not a WGA member, they have a WGA registration website where you can upload, and you pay a small fee and you put all your information there and you send a script in, and then they send you a certificate that gives you basically an authorship and ownership of that script. And so if worst case scenario, it's similar to registering something with the Library of Congress, but it's specifically tapped into the industry, and it'll allow you to have some kind of backup, legally speaking, if for whatever reason you ever come across a situation where you feel like someone is taking an idea that you submitted somewhere. And so you can also do that.
That's great advice. And one more thing that I would add to that is, I think a lot of young people always feel like people are out to steal their ideas. Has that happened before? I'm sure it has. But I do think that talking to people about your ideas and telling everyone about your ideas, you'll get more good from that than bad. And so I'm always a fan of telling people what you have, tell people what you're doing, because you might get feedback. Someone might hear your idea and say, oh, well, if you did this, it might make it better. You never know. But if you're holding it to yourself, you're not workshopping it and you're not getting it out there. So you never know what can come out of just talking to people. And not every idea is Goodwill Hunting, right? And so just really talk to people, get it out there, and, see what happens, because you don't know unless you try. So I would really recommend that anyone who wants to be a writer, talk about your stuff, talk about it to anybody you can, send it to wherever you can, and hope for the best.
The next question comes from Toneka Faletti. She asks, what things would someone need to have under their belt to get staffed on a show?
Experience always helps. You having a sample, I think that's the first thing that we look at, is just seeing, one, has this person been in a room before? And two, what does their sample look like? And, that sample could be, well, it used to be able to be a spec of any show, but legally those really aren't accepted anymore and aren't commonplace. So just something that showcases your original voice. So an original project that you created. And then your reputation. What's your reputation from whoever's recommending you? I think it is very helpful to have an agent or manager if you don't know the showrunner or anybody on the staff already. But if nobody's vouching for you, then the chances of you getting into to be staffed are slim. Whereas if you have people vouching for you, if you have people excited about you, that's the best way. I'll be 100% honest. There have been people who other people have been so excited about where I was like, I like them. I'm not going to read the script. I'm not proud of that, but that happens. I think there's a vibe where if people are satisfied with just your demeanor and what you bring to the table personality-wise, then anything could happen in terms of you getting staffed in a room.
I just wanted to piggyback off of that. A great way, when you're starting out to also get staffed on the show, kind of can come in the form of potentially being a writer's assistant. That's a job that, a lot of younger people take on when they are first starting out in the industry, that will help them get to the places where people can give you those type of opportunities. For instance, if you are a writer's assistant in a room, you're helping all the writers at all times during the creation of the show. So that's a great opportunity to get to know more producers, more showrunners, and as well as, potentially give ideas, if warranted at the time. But this opportunity will help you then take the next step to then being a staff writer. So this is a route that a lot of people take. That is a great route because, again, you meet people that you may have never met before. So it's something I definitely encourage, any of you guys that are younger, that are looking to get staff, and maybe not even younger. I think it's a job that is appropriate for anybody that's passionate about learning what a writer's room looks like. And it's a great segue and opportunity into becoming a staff writer.
Issa, I got a quick question for you to piggyback on that. Is it enough, let's say you get into a writer's room, is it enough just to be a good writer when you get into the writer's room if you want to stay being promoted?
No, it's not enough. I think, one, you have to bring ideas to the table. You have to be collaborative. There have been, some good writers that we've encountered that just aren't great idea havers, or they don't really contribute to the discussion. And the discussion is the most vital part of the writer's room. If you're not bringing your own experience, or if you're not on the same page, frankly, as some of the other writers in the room, and not to say that everybody has to agree, but sometimes if your ideas or your pitches are just way out there and not on story or on a common track, then that's not helpful too. So it's not enough to just be a good writer. You have to be a collaborator. You have to be an ideas person. And that's also not to say that you have to be constantly talking, constantly pitching, but it's great to know that you're thinking and you're contributing.
Last thing I'll add, just going back to a writing sample, is that most people don't realize that when people are staffing shows and looking at samples, it's really important to have a sample that fits the genre of the show a little bit. And so what I mean by that is, if you're primarily a drama writer and you want to be staffed on a show like Insecure, or staffed on a half-hour comedy show, the showrunners and then the network who are reading writing samples primarily going to look at people who are can have a voice in that genre. So if you're a comedy writer, they want to see that you can write comedy. If you are interested in drama, they want to see that you can write drama. And so, really try to figure out what your niche is as a writer and where your voice is best fit, but being prepared to have a script that showcases something that touches on what that show talks about is also very important.
But I will say that to that point, we do sometimes seek out like drama writers, because specifically on a show like Insecure, there are dramatic elements. So just know what your strength is, like Denise said, but also know that you're, to the Montreal point, like being a good writer is great, but you also have to be able to adapt into the showrunner's voice. So that's also something that you need to consider, where it's just like, yes, you're being hired for your specific talent and for your ideas, but ultimately the goal of the show is to write in one voice too.
Thank you guys so much. We hope to be back in 2 weeks. See y'all. Be safe.